having celiac and eating gluten-free is much easier to do now than even 9 years ago. You shouldn't let the diagnosis stop you. You will always have in the back of your mind a little bit of, oh, can we do it? It works out. You just have to be patient, do some research, and you can't stop your life and traveling because of it.
Have you been dreaming of travel but not sure where to go or how to begin planning? Well, you found the right podcast.
Welcome to Theme Parks and Passports, the travel podcast for every family ready to explore the world, one destination at a time. I'm Melissa Sanchez, travel addict, wife, and mom of 2 big kids. Along with planning all my family adventures, I've been helping others realize their travel dreams through my company, Spellbound Vacations, since 2010.
And I'm Heidi Mackey, a travel enthusiast with a passion for geek and pulp culture. I'm also a wife and a mom of a spicy tween. Since 2017, I've been creating vacation memories for families through my business, House of Mackey Travel. Join us as we share stories, tips, and talk to those in the know to inspire your family's next great adventure.
Because creating family travel memories can happen in any stage of life.
Welcome to Theme Parks and Passports. I'm Heidi Mackey from House of Mackey Travel.
And I'm Melissa Sanchez with Spellbound Vacations. This week, we are joined by special guest, Dana Murphy. Dana is a mom, a traveler, and has been a client of mine, I want to say, for about 10 years now. Thank you so much for joining us, Dana.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
And Dana is joining us today. We're going to talk about traveling with food allergies, specifically with celiac that her son was diagnosed with. Why don't you give us a little bit more background so I don't get any dates wrong?
Yeah, sure. So my son was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2017, so about 9 years ago. And it was definitely a life-changing moment when it happened because we had a bunch of years with him as not having to be gluten-free. And, we had to pivot to a special diet, and it was really impactful in the moment to our lives. I had a moment where I was in my kitchen crying because I'm going through the cabinets, and as a 9-year-old, no more goldfish, no more Cheez-Its. But over time, through research and support with friends and doctors and family, we adjusted, and we really find now that it hasn't impacted things as much as when I was originally standing in my kitchen crying. So we've still traveled a lot. Melissa, like you mentioned, you've helped us a lot with our trips. We've done our own road trips up and down the East Coast. We've, gone all over the country. We've traveled internationally even. And so we've kind of embraced it, and we had to learn to live with it. And we're thankful to be in a time right now where there's a ton of resources, and having celiac and eating gluten-free is much easier to do now than even 9 years ago when he got the diagnosis and before that.
So you had a lot of changing that needed to happen and a lot of travel since then too.
He's going to be 17 soon. There's definitely a lot of change because when he's 9, you need to manage it all for him, right? Birthday parties, sleepovers, play dates. He was a sports kid, so traveling around to tournaments, etc. But as he's gotten older, and this is just part of his daily life, he's much more independent. He knows the rules, what he can and can't eat. And because of that, we feel very comfortable now with him going out on his own, making the right decisions. He knows the questions to ask, to advocate for himself, even sometimes just what a gluten-free bun looks like versus a regular bun when that hamburger shows up. So, it's definitely been a learning curve, but now it's just the everyday. And we're very thankful, with his friends and their families since he's been 9. If they aren't sure about something, they would text us. They were very, concerned. They didn't want him to get glutened, as we say. And I was happy to answer the questions. I was just thankful they were asking. That happens less and less now because he just knows what he can and can't have. And most of his friends, since he's been 9, know we keep a gluten-free box of pasta in case he sleeps over. And we keep, we know what snacks now. So it was definitely hard. The traveling the first time was the hardest, and it was very soon after we had the diagnosis. But We learned a lot and we continue to learn, but we continue to travel.
And I know one of the things that we have chatted about was that when you do your road trips or even some of the trips that we've planned together, you basically carry a picnic with you. So, what
Yeah.
does that look like for you guys when you're jumping on the road for a sporting event or driving up to Maine or down south, or even visiting a theme park? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I like to say we're a traveling picnic. We always have snacks, you never know. But one of the things that we typically find that we end up packing is, in a suitcase even, like we're throwing a loaf of bread in the suitcase with us. Sometimes, that's the easiest thing to make for breakfast or lunch if you're on the road and you can't find a gluten-free bread or roll or bagel or something like that. So we pack things like that, non-perishables that are light, that we can throw in a suitcase or in a bag. So there are gluten-free, like mac and cheese cups, granola bars, oatmeal, things like that that we can easily pack that are light. In terms of if we're on the road, sandwiches are great, yogurts, cheese sticks, things like that. We typically now, we will go to, like, Jersey Mike's has a great gluten-free protocol. They offer Udi's gluten-free subs, which pro tip, you can actually buy those subs frozen from them individually if you want them in your house. So you can bring those on the road too. But we'll typically stop there before we go somewhere and throw that in the cooler, so there's lunch already prepared, and they do a great job if you put in the notes, allergy. They wipe everything down, they have a separate knife, and it's really good and nutritious versus having to stop and, try to figure out something at a McDonald's if you can even get anything there. So we typically will stop and grab sandwiches and then, bring those with us in preparation of we might not be able to find something on the road. So we have that ready to go in the car. Also, if you don't have to stop, makes the trip a little bit shorter. So we pack a lot of snacks, chips, yogurts, dairy, and there's always the treats, so maybe some candy and chocolates and things like that. But we try to be as prepared as possible because we don't want him to feel singled out. And that's a big thing, especially having to deal with this from 9 to, 16 years old. They feel that, especially, as they're getting into the middle school years and they don't wanna be, the one kid who can't. And so it changes everything. It's really important to not make him feel singled out. And so if we go to Jersey Mike's and we get the sandwiches, we all get sandwiches, and we're all gonna have sandwiches on the road. So we just try to prepare as much as we can for the fact that we might not be able to find something.
Well, before we get into the actual traveling piece of it, we just want to say that the views and experiences shared in this episode reflect the personal experience of our guest only. This content is not medical advice. We encourage you to consult your healthcare provider and make decisions based on your own health, family, and individual needs. That said, let's get into traveling.
Yeah. So, Dana, as I mentioned, you and I have been working together for years, and we worked together even before Lucas was diagnosed. And then I believe the first big trip we did together after his diagnosis was Walt Disney World, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember if it was Walt Disney World or the beaches.
I think we did beaches first. They were
Beaches
very
first.
close to each other. They were
Yes.
within, like, 6 months.
And I know in this was back in 2018, I think,
Yeah.
around that we
Mhm.
did the beaches in the Walt Disney World. And I know at the time, your son was younger, you were definitely the one in charge of everything. And so at that point, we made the decision that we felt Beaches Ocho Rios would be a good choice. Beaches normally is one of the resorts that is fairly good with food allergies. So we felt like, okay, this would be a good option. However, with your first trip with him having celiac, it was definitely a struggle. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we definitely did pack food, and we were thankful that we did. The struggle of the things that I learned that I hadn't really thought about was we could order him gluten-free food. So, for instance, in the mornings at breakfast, they did have gluten-free pancakes, but it would take 20 minutes to get the gluten-free pancakes. Now, there's good reason behind it. They're cleaning something off, they're using a different griddle, they have to make the batter individually, but at the time, I was like, "Why is this taking so long?" And you have a hungry kid next to you. So, there was struggle with timing of food there. We did talk to the chef when we got there. Chicken nuggets, 9 years old, again, took a really long time, and they were not great. The, bread selection for him was not great, and as a 9-year-old, at the time, as an American kid, pasta's a staple, pizza's a staple. So there were things he definitely could not have, and that taught us to pack more. It taught us that he's gotta expand his palate a little bit, so we would start introducing more naturally gluten-free foods that he could eat in the morning. So you can have eggs, you can have bacon, you can have fruit, you're just not having the toast. So, the amount of options for him there for a 9-year-old was not great. They had a little place next to the pool that you could get pizzas, but there was no gluten-free option. So, it was a bit of a struggle. We did have snacks with us. He never went hungry. It was just dinner time, buffet time, all of that took a lot longer than we expected, and the quality of it wasn't where we thought it was going to be.
Right.
So, that was a learning experience of what to research for and how to book other trips. We had a fantastic time.
Do you find now, do you that, we're talking again 8, 9 years ago that we did this trip. And I will note, because you mentioned you spoke to the chef when you arrived, because one of the things that we can do is we alert the resorts. We let them know before you arrive. We have a client who has a dietary restriction. Do you feel in general, between the time that you went on this beaches trip and 2026, that you have seen improvements all around when it comes to gluten-free food, no matter where you're traveling, whether it's Manhattan or, another resort or something along those lines?
100%. Definitely. Things are more clearly marked. People are much more knowledgeable at all of these places as well, which is extremely helpful. The resources you have to research now versus 9 years ago, I mean, social media and everything has changed that so much. So there's much more access to information in all different places from so many different people all over the world that it's changed dramatically. And if I had the resources that I have now when I did the first trip, it would have been a different experience. But I think the knowledge and even just how things are labeled, and I know they're trying to improve labeling for gluten-free with the USDA, but even that has gotten so much better that it's easier to find, whether it's at a buffet or in your supermarket.
Now, do you have specific tools that you use when you're planning?
Yes. So I just mentioned I do a lot of research. So obviously, Melissa has been an amazing tool.
Yep.
Number one, I specifically use this one app when I'm traveling. I highly recommend it. It's called the Gluten Dude app. And he has created an app where he himself is celiac and has some other allergies. And he vets every restaurant himself by calling, talking to the chefs. He gets recommendations from other people in the gluten-free community. Hey, this restaurant opened by me, add them to your app. He calls and vets them. It is probably my number one resource as when I was a travel sports mom, just a traveling mom. Now I use it. There's a road trip planner. It can tell you where to stop, whether you're
Wow.
driving or flying. So now you can find gluten-free options in airports. That is one of the hardest, is the
Oh,
airport.
yeah.
For sure. And this app is great. I always leave a review because I feel like it's so helpful, but it's crowdsourced in a way that it's vetted, which makes it more accurate. So
Mhm.
that is probably one of my number one tools that I personally use. I recommend to all my friends. I'm not a big pay for apps person. I gladly paid for this app And I'm not a big notifications on every app person either, but his notifications are something near you was added. Check it out. So that's one of my biggest resources that I use. The other one that I tend to be using a little bit more lately is Instagram Reels and TikToks. You can find people who go all over a city and recommend specific things. Like, here's how to have gluten-free breakfast for a week in Pittsburgh. Here's how to have gluten-free pasta in New York City. And they will just go to various places, and I save them under a gluten-free folder and save all of those within those apps. Those are really helpful as well. Obviously, a lot of us are still using Facebook. It's kind of the original.
Mhm.
And so I definitely am part of some gluten-free travel, pages. If I'm going somewhere specific, I will join like the gluten-free universal page, and you can find a couple of them. So finding specific cities, specific places, even your cruise has a Facebook page usually, and you can join that for your week. So I've done that as well. The other is just a simple Google search. Google searches are great, gluten-free restaurants near me, wherever you are. I like reading the reviews because you can search by the words gluten-free in reviews. So that really tells you a lot as well. And Google searches lead you to a lot of blogs still and websites. I would say the only thing with that is making sure to check the dates. Sometimes you'll
Mm,
go to one and it's 2022. I mean,
Yeah.
everything's changed. The menu could be
yeah.
different. The experience can be different. So I would say check the dates. I've fallen into that trap before. The other place that Google searches have led me to recently, and I use a lot more, is Reddit, because the Reddit posts will have specific dates. There's tons and tons of information there as well. And the community, when in general, when you're asking about gluten-free dining and food, is so helpful. So I find that if you can get on a forum, on a Reddit page, or find something there, wealth of information. So Reddit's kind of the new place I'm going, as well as the Instagram Reels and TikToks.
That's great. So we talked a little bit about your first all-inclusive trip when Lucas was first diagnosed, but we've also done a couple of theme park trips
Yeah.
together. In 2019, you did your first theme park trip as gluten-free, and that was to Walt Disney World. And then I wanted to say last year, but really it was 2024, so it wasn't last year. It was almost 2 years ago now. We did Universal.
Yep.
So, while yes, they were about 5 years apart, Walt Disney World has always, in my experience with my clients, and you can tell me whether you agree with this or not, has been really great with dietary needs and restrictions, whether it be gluten free or something along those lines. How was your experience with Walt Disney World, and how was your Universal experience?
Walt Disney World, we went into knowing that they handled gluten-free very well, and they did. I remember going to, I don't know if it's open right now, but I think it was Trattoria Al Forno, the Italian
Mhm,
restaurant.
mhm.
I mean, there was a stamp right on our ticket. Like, he showed us, we mentioned it, and everything we got was gluten-free, safe. I mean, it was such a nice feeling. Disney Springs, Raglan Road was great. We did Flame Tree Barbecue. One of the highlights, because we did in the first trip when we were not gluten-free, the second time we wanted to do Hoop-de-Doo Review again, and we were like, "Can we eat there?" Fried chicken. And they made everything gluten-free. But everywhere we went really had options. I mean, we did research prior. I was on a gluten-free Disney page, but we found options everywhere between Hollywood Studios, Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Disney Springs, from snacks to dessert. We still brought with us, I would say snacks are the hardest. You want all those fun things that you can get in the little stands, but you just can't have all of them. So, we still did bring snacks and things, which you can bring
Yeah,
into parks. So, we really had a great time. It was nice to go knowing we could move around the park and get food easily. We typically do meal plans when we go to
mhm.
Disney, and we decided to do breakfast in our room. So one of the things that we've done is pre-ordering groceries or an Amazon delivery of some kind in the room because you have a fridge. So we did, the little bowls of cereal with milk. So like Honey Nut Cheerios, and Cheerios are gluten-free, Lucky Charms. We did yogurts, cheeses, things like that, bananas in the room. So we saved our meals for the gluten-free walk
Mhm.
the parks because breakfast is for some reason a bit more challenging at times. Pancakes and waffles. I mean, everyone wants a Mickey waffle. And I know you can get those things gluten-free, but we decided to save the time and the meal. So that's one of the tips we had because we could safely eat in the room and then walk out the door and get to the park. So Disney was great, and the staff was definitely knowledgeable for sure. Universal surprised me. Having gone to Disney and done that a bunch of times and done it once gluten-free, Universal, I wasn't too sure about. It's an older park in terms of, like, I felt like it was an older clientele, like older kids, families, but older kids typically. And we ate well, and we were surprised. We really enjoyed a lot of things on City Walk.
Mhm.
We went to Cowfish, which was sushi, twice. We liked it so much. They were great about accommodating. They were like, "Oh, we'll just take out the bento flakes, we'll just take this out. We have gluten-free soy sauce." I mean, they were super accommodating. Red Oven Pizza was really good on City Walk, and Antojitos was great too. Mexican food typically is, like, more naturally gluten-free,
Mhm.
but they were great. They were very accommodating. In the park, the place that surprised us the most for gluten-free was Krusty Burger.
Really?
Really?
Yes. The chef
Funny,
came
we're both
out.
surprised by that.
Yeah, it's very surprised. I'm like, "Oh, it's Krusty Burger over by The Simpsons." But
Mhm.
when we asked, chef came out, talked to us. He had a great, quick service meal, and then right across from that, also in the Simpsons area, was the Bumblebee Man's taco truck.
Mhm.
Again, like, you can just ask for the corn tortillas, everything else seemed to be, naturally gluten-free that they made, and the Three Broomsticks breakfast in Harry Potter World, completely accommodated. Chef came out, talked to us, made him a gluten-free version of the breakfast, which was great because you're in Harry Potter World. You want everyone to experience, that
Mhm.
magic there. So we had a really good time there. We stayed at the Hard Rock, Hotel, which the kitchen, which is their in-house restaurant, was amazing with gluten-free. I mean, at this point, he was 14, and we threw lobster mac and cheese in front of him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, a gluten-free meal, he was super excited. Their desserts even were gluten-free, the staff was great, and then they have a market downstairs. They made him a gluten-free wrap. So, like, he went on his own, he was hungry, he's like, "I'm gonna go see what's downstairs." He came back with this giant gluten-free wrap. We were so excited for him. So, Hard Rock was a great option for a place to stay if you wanna not eat on City Walk or in the park, get some meals at your hotel, have that little deli market available. But Universal really impressed me. There were places we didn't even get to eat that we wanted to eat in the park that we'd probably go back and eat there just to know, but more options than I expected for sure.
Good.
Did you find that there was the delay in food like you were talking about at the all-inclusive?
No, not nearly how it was. Sometimes a gluten-free pizza will take a little bit longer, but I didn't find that there was the delay. Everything would come out at once, which was nice. But you're talking now a couple minutes, not like 20 minutes.
Good.
I have to say that I'm super impressed by a lot the consistency in your story too is that the chef comes out and speaks to you.
Yes.
Is that common even when you're not in the parks, when you've been eating on your road trips or just locally?
No, not typically. I think sometimes at higher end restaurants, they might. So we went somewhere, we were in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and the chef came and talked to us. It was like our fancy dinner night, we do one. They came and spoke to us, and it was great. I think staff in general is more knowledgeable, but you still have to ask questions. Are you using separate water for the pasta? Like, are you using a separate grill? Are you using a separate toaster? You do have to advocate for yourself and you have to ask questions. But the theme parks definitely had more of a, we're going to come and talk to you vibe for sure.
Yeah. And so our most recent trip was last summer. You
Yep.
sailed on Norwegian Cruise Line to Alaska,
Yep.
leaving from Seattle, or round trip Seattle, I should say. So we let the ship know. We marked your reservation, celiac, gluten-free. How was your experience on board the cruise ship? Because this was your first cruise, and I know kind of how you were a little nervous with Universal. I know you were a little nervous getting on the cruise ship.
Yes, I would say hands down, that was probably the best handling of allergies was the cruise, and
Okay.
specifically Norwegian. I don't have a comparison to another cruise line, but they definitely had it on file. We did do the allergy form, so it was there. When
Mhm.
we got there, I did talk to the dining manager the first day, so I did take a little bit of time, and that then before we even left the port. So you can get on the ship early, and there's all these people who are trying to make their reservations, and you gotta stand in that line. But I immediately was brought over to a dining manager who talked to me, showed me menus, gave me instruction. It was preferred if you let them know, 12 to 24 hours prior to your meal what you might wanna order. What didn't always happen, but they still accommodated us. And then we just saw her the whole time everywhere, and she remembered us, remembered her. I mean, you're stuck on a boat for 7 days. They were great, even though it was in our account, so you sit, they know what room you are, who you are. They still always asked. Everywhere we sat, asked, right? Somebody was like, "Oh, I see you have a gluten allergy. Who has the gluten allergy? Alright, here's what we have tonight for you," and it's just the regular menu, and we can modify it or nothing needs to be changed at all. So, it was really nice that they asked and accommodated. When we were there, we Lucas would go out on his own, and he went to the local, which was, like a 24-hour
Mhm.
restaurant. I think they closed for
Mhm.
about 2 hours. They had plenty of gluten-free options for him, and he would just go on his own and grab a burger and fries or nachos or something like that, and he had no issues, and he felt super comfortable on the ship because of the way that the staff would always ask and handle things, and he knew that it was on our account, which
How
was
did you guys feel about the buffet?
the buffet was very easy to navigate. So, first of all, everything is so clearly marked of any allergy on the buffet. A lot of things were, like, naturally gluten-free in general. One of the things we loved the most, and he got a few times, was the ramen station when it was there. Those were rice noodles and no soy sauce or anything like that, but he enjoyed, like, having a bowl of ramen, getting gluten-free pasta. Now the trick is some of the stations, you do have to ask for the gluten-free pasta or the gluten-free desserts or the gluten-free bun. And I asked them why. Like, why isn't it just out? They don't want everyone to just take those things.
Mm.
They need it for the people who truly need it, and which makes sense. So, specifically, the desserts were always behind the counter, but they always had them. They always had something. And the buffet was probably the easiest to navigate. It made the trip so much less stressful as a parent knowing that he
Mhm.
could eat because where are you going? You're on a boat, right?
Yeah.
If anything, some of the ports were harder and we're like, we should just wait and go back and eat on the boat. So we had a really great time. He ate lots of burgers, lots of pasta and ramen and the special sushi, and they did a fantastic, fantastic job on that ship with the allergies.
What's the biggest difference you've seen from traveling back when you first got the diagnosis to today?
I think what we've noticed is actually more diagnosis. Like,
Mm.
you run into people more with the allergy than you ever did before. So the amount of people where we told them our story of what was going on to get to the diagnosis, who then decided to go get checked out, and then they got diagnosed. And so the community has definitely grown. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier about Cheez-Its, like, he was 9, Cheez-Its are gone. Well, guess what?
Mhm.
Cheez-Its are back. They just released gluten Cheez-It, like, we're trying to find it. It
That's
sells out in 2
amazing.
seconds. One of the top places we like is Trader Joe's, so there's people who
Mm.
just talk about gluten-free Trader Joe's items.
Yeah.
What's come in, is that's a seasonal type store. So those types of things have really evolved, and I think the knowledge is the most important part that then trickles down into everything else, whether you're eating at home or eating out or traveling. And if that's out there, then you have a much easier time, whether you're in your hometown at a restaurant or you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean.
So, would you, for a parent who has a child who was recently diagnosed and is basically feels like, "Oh my god, can we go to Disney?" Would your advice be to do it?
Yes, you shouldn't let the diagnosis stop you. You will always have in the back of your mind a little bit of, "Oh, can we do it? What's gonna happen?" It works out. It works out. You just have to be patient, do some research, and you can't stop your life and traveling because of it. I mean, we've even gone internationally, and you can do it. You might have to pivot a few times and make sure there's a supermarket nearby, or that you can get a delivery of some kind depending where you are and what country you're in, but it's manageable. You can do it. The travel experience and seeing the world is worth the slight possible inconvenience at times. It's important to get out there and see the world, and you shouldn't let food stop you. There's ways to manage it, and I think like we've been saying, the resources available now, you couldn't do it as well 30 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say take the trip. Surround yourself with people who are knowledgeable like yourselves, and ask the questions on the forums and the groups and the pages. People will gladly answer them and give you their experience and where to go and recommendations. I mean, nothing is better than a recommendation of a place where someone with celiac went to eat, had a good experience, didn't get sick. Okay, so you eat there 3 times. At least you had a great meal and you didn't get sick.
Dina, thank you so much for all this amazing information and sharing your stories with us. I think that it's been great having you as a guest, and I'm really happy that you were able to make time for us today. So, how we normally wrap everything up is that we do a would you rather. And my question for you today, after the experiences that you've had, would you rather have a food restriction doing a theme park or going on a cruise?
So, this might surprise some of my friends and family because I was not a big cruise person before my Alaska cruise, but I'm going to choose cruise. There were a lot more options, especially, you're traveling with a family, you have all different ages. There's something for everybody. I didn't have to pack as many snacks and things. I did have some in the room. The knowledge that they had was great, and the fact that as a mom of a teen, that he could just go on his own and eat safely, peace of mind, was
Yeah.
great. So I would have to choose cruise. That being said, the theme parks are great, and, being able to just walk around and you're burning calories, you're
Yeah.
doing miles and miles, knowing that you can fuel up easily was helpful, but there was much more prep involved there. You're definitely advocating for yourself more on a theme park trip. But the cruise, hands down, still do your research, but definitely a great experience as a family with a food allergy like celiac.
I think that's so great. And I normally Heidi and I would answer also, but I don't have food allergy in my family, so obviously cannot make a, knowledgeable choice except for from working with you, Dana. And so I think in just our experiences together and my experience working for you, I think that I'd probably be comfortable with either if I had a child or a grown up. I mean, and anybody that you were traveling with an
Yeah,
allergy.
yeah. I mean, both are great options for traveling with accommodation. So don't rule either of them out, a theme park or a cruise, like, do it. But if you're looking for the more, "I'm not worrying at all," less to do. I mean, we have so much to do these days, and getting ready for a trip can be stressful, but the theme park, definitely don't discount it at all.
Dana, thank you so much again for joining us on this episode of Theme Parks and Passports. We really enjoyed all your knowledge and I think there's a lot of families out there who are going to find this information really useful. And I hope that it helps some families who are nervous about traveling know that they can do it. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. Please follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcast player. And while you're there, feel free to leave us a rating and review.
Check out the show notes for links to Spellbound Vacations LLC and House of Mackie Travel. Until next time, keep living your best travel life.